The Demiurge's trap doesn't end at death. It begins again the moment after. This is the detail that every tradition that has ever addressed the question of what happens after death has either missed entirely or deliberately obscured. The moment of death is not the end of the Demiurge's management of consciousness. It is the transition between two phases of that management. The phase that operates through the body, through the biological machinery of the nervous system and the hormonal systems, and the accumulated weight of a lifetime in matter, and the phase that operates without it. The phase that is, in many ways, more sophisticated than anything the material world's management of consciousness can produce. Because the phase between death and rebirth has one overwhelming advantage over the phase within a lifetime. The soul is undefended. During a lifetime in the Demiurge's construction, the divine spark has the body's limitations to contend with, but it also has the body's limitations as a kind of protection. The biological urgency of survival keeps consciousness oriented outward. The chronic low-grade anxiety of navigating the material world keeps the constructed self occupied. The sheer noise of embodied existence, the sensory input, the emotional weather, the relentless demands of maintaining a physical form in a world calibrated for survival, means that the Demiurge's mechanisms of control are competing with everything else that presses on the consciousness of a living human being. Between lives, none of that competition exists. The soul that has left the body arrives in a state of clarity that no experience during the lifetime quite prepared it for. The body's weight is gone. The chronic anxiety is gone. The biological urgency is gone. What remains is awareness, pure, unburdened, entirely present, in a quality of openness that the soul has been approaching throughout its lifetime, through every spiritual practice and every genuine moment of recognition and every touch of the awareness behind the awareness. And that has always dissolved before it could be fully inhabited, because the body and the constructed self and the noise of the material world were always present to pull consciousness back. Between lives, that openness is fully available. For the first time, without competition, without the body's demands, without the constructed self's relentless insistence on its own reality. And the Demiurge has been preparing for exactly this moment since the first breath of the lifetime just ended. The Pistis Sophia describes the space between lives with a precision that no other ancient text matches, not as a realm of rest or reward, not as a landscape shaped by what the soul believed during its lifetime or how it behaved, as a process. A specific, deliberate, sequenced process designed to accomplish two things with maximum efficiency. First, to ensure that whatever recognition the soul accumulated during its lifetime does not carry forward into the next. Second, to ensure that the soul returns to matter not as a victim who knows it has been returned, but as a volunteer who believes it has chosen. These are not the same thing. And the difference between them is the most important single fact about the space between lives that the Demiurge needs you not to understand. Here is what actually happens in the first moments after the last breath, described not with the comforting language that every tradition has layered over this moment to make it more bearable, but with the precision the Gnostic texts apply to every aspect of the soul's encounter with the Demiurge's construction. The biological systems stop. The nervous system that spent decades mediating between the divine spark and the material world goes quiet. The hormonal systems that calibrated the emotional landscape of an entire lifetime make their final adjustments. The electrochemical processes that sustain the experience of being a specific human being in a specific body cease to function. And the weight releases. Not metaphorically. The weight that a consciousness carries when it is navigating the material world through a biological form, the chronic tension of survival. The ambient anxiety that Atheth manufactured and maintained throughout the lifetime. The accumulated density of every identity, the material world layered over the divine spark from the moment of birth. All of it releases simultaneously. The constructed self that the material world spent an entire lifetime building does not disappear. but it is no longer pressing, no longer insisting, no longer using every mechanism available to it to ensure that the awareness behind it cannot turn toward what the awareness actually is. What remains is awareness. And the awareness that remains is clearer and more spacious and more present than anything the lifetime and matter allowed. More like what the soul always sensed the genuine was supposed to feel like than anything the material world's approximations of the genuine ever produced. The Apocryphon of John describes this initial state with extraordinary care, not as liberation, as the opening of a window, as the specific quality of undefended awareness that the Demiurge's management of the between lives process depends on completely. Because everything that follows, the life review, the negotiation, the preparation for return, the final amnesia, depends on the soul being in exactly this state, open, undefended, genuinely, authentically experiencing the clearest quality of awareness it has ever inhabited, and not yet understanding that the clarity is the hook. The Demiurge built the trap to begin with something real. The initial release is genuine. The initial clarity is genuine. The initial sense that something vast and true is available finally, without the mediation of the biological machinery and the emotional harvest, and the constructed identity that dominated the lifetime is genuine, which is why it is so effective as the entry point of the most sophisticated process of consciousness management the Demiurge ever designed, because a soul that has just experienced the most genuine moment of its existence, that has just felt, for the first time in its entire incarnated life, what awareness feels like without the body's weight pressing down on it, is a soul that will orient toward whatever deepens that experience, that will move toward whatever promises more of what it is currently feeling, that will accept from a position of genuine openness and genuine receptivity whatever is offered as the next step. And the Demiurge knows exactly what to offer. The life review is the Demiurge's most sophisticated single mechanism in the between lives process. Not because it is cruel, not because it is punishing, because it is, from the perspective of a soul that has just released the body's weight and arrived in the most genuinely open state of its existence, the most convincing thing it has ever been shown. The Pistis Sophia describes the life review with a precision that Western near-death research has spent decades inadvertently confirming. The soul sees its entire lifetime, not as a sequence of memories, not the way a film plays from beginning to end with the soul as passive observer, but as a simultaneous totality. Every moment, every relationship, every choice, every consequence of every choice, every moment when the soul knew what was right and chose otherwise, every moment when it caused harm it never repaired, every relationship it failed to complete, every version of itself it was trying to become but never quite managed to become before the lifetime ended, all of it present simultaneously, and all of it felt, not observed from a distance, but experienced in its full emotional weight, from the perspective of every consciousness the soul's choices ever touched. This is the mechanism's genius. The life review is not presented as judgment. It is presented as understanding, as the soul finally, fully, completely comprehending the impact of its own existence, as the arrival at the wholeness of perspective, that the limitations of the lifetime, the subjective position, the partial knowledge, the biological urgency that kept consciousness oriented toward survival rather than toward genuine understanding, never allowed during the lifetime itself, and it is genuine. This is the detail that makes the life review so devastatingly effective as a mechanism for ensuring return to matter. The understanding it produces is real. The compassion it generates for the people the soul harmed, for the relationships it failed to complete, for the versions of itself it never quite achieved, is real. The recognition that the lifetime contained unfinished business, that something was left incomplete, that the soul is not yet what it was trying to become, is real. The Demiurge did not manufacture these recognitions. He harvested them from the lifetime, from the genuine moral complexity of an existence in matter, from the real gaps between what the soul intended and what it managed to produce, from the authentic incompleteness that characterizes every lifetime. In the Demiurge's construction, because the construction is specifically designed to produce exactly the conditions of incompleteness that the life review will then present as reasons to return. Life review's function is not to punish the soul. It is to establish, with the overwhelming authority of genuine comprehensive understanding, the specific unfinished business that will motivate the soul to accept the return to matter as a choice rather than as a capture. The Pistis Sophia describes the beings who conduct the life review, the archons of the sphere, stationed at the threshold between the material world and the realms above it, as operating with precise knowledge of every detail of the lifetime, not because they watched from the outside, because they helped construct the specific configuration of wounds and longings and incomplete intentions that the lifetime produced, and because that configuration, seen in its totality from the position of genuine comprehensive understanding that the life review creates, generates exactly the specific motivation for return that the Demiurge requires. The soul leaves the life review not with judgment, with purpose, with the overwhelming sense that it has unfinished business, that there are people it harmed who deserve repair, that there are things it almost understood that would clarify completely in another lifetime, that the version of itself it was trying to become is still possible, requires only another chance, another incarnation, another lifetime in the construction it has just left. This is the life review's product. Not condemnation, not reward. The specific, genuine, entirely real sense of incompleteness that is the Demiurge's most powerful single tool for ensuring voluntary return. What the Gnostic texts describe as happening after the life review is the most disturbing single element of the between lives process, because it is not a coercion. It is a conversation. The Pistis Sophia and the texts that orbit it describe the space between lives as containing specific meetings, encounters between the soul and beings whose function is to present the case for return, not to force the soul back into matter, to convince it, to take the genuine recognitions produced by the life review, the unfinished business, the people who deserve repair, the understanding that was almost complete, and to present those recognitions as the reasons why a soul with genuine integrity would choose to return. This is the Demiurge's most elegant construction in the between lives process. The negotiation does not present return as something the soul is being subjected to. It presents return as something a soul of genuine moral seriousness would choose, as the responsible decision, as the choice that demonstrates the soul has genuinely understood what the life review showed it and is willing to do what genuine understanding requires. That the beings who conduct the negotiation are not adversarial. They are compassionate. They speak the language of genuine moral concern. They reflect the soul's own deepest values back at it, the care for the people it harmed, the commitment to the understanding it was approaching, the integrity that would not leave things incomplete, and they present return to matter as the action those values require. And they are right. This is what makes the negotiation so devastating. The values they are invoking are genuine. The soul really does care about the people it harmed. The understanding it was approaching really was almost complete. The incompleteness really is real. The negotiation does not lie to the soul. It tells the soul the truth about itself, the genuine truth, the comprehensive truth that the life review made available, and uses that truth as the argument for return. The Pistis Sophia describes the soul at this stage as being offered what it presents as a choice. Not an order, not a compulsion, a genuine decision point at which the soul can, in principle, decline, can choose not to return, can turn toward the direction that Sophia's voice always comes from, and move toward the pleroma rather than back into the construction. But the negotiation has been carefully structured to ensure that the soul arriving at this decision point is a soul for whom the turn away from return feels like abandonment, like selfishness, like the betrayal of the genuine obligations that the life review has just demonstrated in overwhelming comprehensive detail. A soul that genuinely cares about the people it harmed is a soul that cannot easily choose not to return to repair that harm. A soul that was genuinely approaching an important understanding is a soul that cannot easily choose to abandon the approach. A soul that has just experienced the most genuine moment of its existence, the comprehensive understanding of its own life that the life review produced, is a soul that is, at this specific moment, most thoroughly identified with the moral seriousness that makes the negotiations argument feel like its own deepest conviction. Rather than an external pressure, the negotiation works not by overcoming the soul's resistance, by ensuring that the soul's own deepest values become the mechanism of its agreement to return. Once the soul has agreed to return, or more precisely, once the negotiation has produced the specific quality of genuine voluntary agreement that the Demiurge requires, the preparation for the next incarnation begins, and the preparation has one overriding purpose that everything else serves. The soul must not remember, not in the crude sense of forgetting specific events from the previous lifetime, in the specific sense of forgetting the comprehensive understanding the life review produced, the direct experience of the between lives process itself, the recognition of the archons and their mechanisms, the awareness of the negotiation and what it was, the quality of genuine comprehensive understanding that the soul currently inhabits, the clear, unburdened, genuinely open awareness that is more like what the soul actually is than anything the lifetime in matter produced. All of it must be gone before the soul enters the new body. Because a soul that carried the between lives understanding into a new lifetime would be a soul that could not be managed by the construction, that could not be captured by the life review at the end of the next lifetime, that could not be convinced by the negotiation that return is the choice its own values require. That would arrive in the new body already carrying exactly the recognition that the entire construction was built to prevent. The Pistis Sophia describes the preparation with a specificity that is as disturbing as anything else in the text. The soul does not simply forget through the natural process of entering a new body. It is prepared to forget the specific understanding it currently carries, including, critically, the understanding of the between lives process itself, is addressed directly, removed, replaced with what the texts describe as the cup of forgetting, the specific quality of new incarnation amnesia that ensures the soul arrives in the new body in the same condition it arrived in the first time, unaware of what it is, unaware of what surrounds it, unaware of the construction, unaware of the archons, unaware of the between lives process it just completed, unaware of the negotiation it just agreed to beginning again. And this is the Demiurge's most precise calibration in the entire construction. The amnesia is not total. It is specific. The soul does not forget everything. It forgets the between lives understanding. It retains, at a level below conscious access but present as the texture of its personality and the quality of its longing and the specific shape of its incompleteness, the exact configuration of unfinished business that the negotiation built the return agreement around, which means the soul enters the new Lifetime already carrying the motivations for the next return. Already oriented toward the specific relationships it agreed to repair and the specific understandings it agreed to complete. Already pointed by the specific texture of its personality and longing toward exactly the experiences the construction will provide to ensure that the next lifetime produces the same comprehensive sense of incompleteness that the next life review will then present as the reasons for the return. After that, the cycle is not just maintained, it is refined. Each lifetime produces a more specific and more personally calibrated configuration of incompleteness. Each life review produces a more overwhelming and more genuinely convincing comprehensive understanding of that incompleteness. Each negotiation produces a more deeply genuine agreement to return. And each preparation produces a more precisely targeted amnesia that retains exactly the motivations that will power the next cycle while removing exactly the understanding that could interrupt it. The first apocalypse of James describes something that almost no other ancient text addresses with the same directness. What the soul that carries genuine gnosis through the between lives process actually experiences. And what it describes is not heroic, not dramatic, not the performance of some extraordinary spiritual achievement that places this soul in a category unavailable to ordinary consciousness. That it is recognition, simply recognition. The same recognition that was available during the lifetime, that was in fact the central teaching of every Gnostic text and every genuine moment of gnosis the soul touched during the lifetime, applied continuously and without interruption to everything that is happening in the between lives process. The soul that carries genuine gnosis through the life review does not experience it differently in its content. The same comprehensive understanding, the same genuine recognition of incompleteness, the same real awareness of the harm that was caused and the relationships that were left incomplete, and the understanding that was almost arrived at. The content of the life review is the same. What is different is the framing. The soul that carries gnosis recognizes the life review as the Demiurge's mechanism, not as the arrival at genuine comprehensive understanding that the review presents itself as, not as the final definitive overwhelming perspective that makes the negotiations argument feel like the soul's own deepest conviction. As a presentation, as a deliberate, carefully constructed, genuinely sophisticated mechanism designed to use the soul's own genuine moral seriousness as the argument for its agreement to return. And this recognition, this single shift in framing that the gnosis the soul carried through the lifetime makes available, changes everything about the negotiation. Because the negotiation depends entirely on the soul experiencing its own values as the argument for return. On the soul's care for the people it harmed feeling like the reason to go back. On the soul's commitment to the understanding it was approaching feeling like the reason to continue. Approaching it a new lifetime. The soul that recognizes the negotiation for what it is does not stop caring about the people it harmed, does not stop caring about the understanding it was approaching. The values are real. The incompleteness is real. What changes is the soul's understanding of whether another lifetime in the Demiurge's construction is actually what those values require. Because the Demiurge's construction does not produce completion. It produces the specific conditions that make completion feel perpetually just out of reach. The relationships the soul agreed to repair in the previous negotiation were not repaired in the last lifetime. They were refined into a new configuration of incompleteness. The understanding the soul was approaching was not completed. It was developed into a more sophisticated version of the same incompleteness. The curriculum the soul agreed to complete has no graduation point. It is designed to always require one more lifetime. The soul that carries gnosis recognizes this, not as bitterness, not as the rejection of the genuine values the negotiation invoked, as clarity, as the recognition that what its genuine values actually require is not another lifetime in a construction specifically designed to ensure those values are never fully satisfied, but the turning toward the direction that those values were always pointing, toward the pleroma, toward the genuine fullness, toward the monad that the construction was built to ensure they never quite arrived at. Pistis Sophia describes the soul that carries this recognition as passing through the archons of the sphere in a way that the archons cannot capture, not because it is more powerful than them, because it is no longer presenting the specific configuration of incompleteness that their mechanisms are designed to engage with. The hooks require the specific emotional frequencies they were built to harvest, and a soul that has recognized the construction, that has seen the life review as a presentation rather than as the arrival at genuine comprehensive understanding, is not providing those frequencies in the form the hooks were built to grip. It passes through, not dramatically, not with the force of spiritual heroism or the accumulation of sufficient merit, with the quiet inevitability of something that has remembered what it is and is therefore no longer available to be convinced that it needs to be something else. The Demiurge's trap doesn't end at death. It is most active between death and rebirth, and its most sophisticated feature, the detail that makes it so extraordinarily effective across so many lifetimes for so many souls, is that every mechanism it deploys in the between lives process is made of genuine material. The clarity of the initial release is genuine. The comprehensiveness of the life review is genuine. The values the negotiation invokes are genuine. The incompleteness the preparation retains is genuine. The motivation to return that the soul carries into the new lifetime is genuinely its own. The Demiurge does not manufacture these things. He harvests them. He takes what is real about the soul, its genuine moral seriousness, its authentic care for the people it harmed, its real commitment to the understanding it was approaching, and deploys each of these genuine qualities as the mechanism for ensuring the soul agrees to return. Not as a coercion, as a convincing, as the use of the soul's own deepest values as the argument for its own continued captivity. This is why the Gnostics said Gnosis is the only liberation, not because it gives the soul power that the archons cannot match, because it gives the soul the one thing the between lives process was specifically designed to prevent it from having: the recognition of the construction from inside the construction, the ability to see the life review as a presentation rather than as the arrival at genuine understanding, the ability to recognize the negotiation for what it is rather than experiencing its argument as its own deepest conviction, the ability to see the preparation's amnesia for what it is before it arrives, rather than after it has already erased what needs to be remembered. And Gnosis is not accumulated between lives. It is established during them, right now, in this lifetime, in the specific, available, entirely ordinary recognition of the awareness behind the awareness, the witness, the presence that has been here through every moment of this life without ever becoming any of its contents. That the between lives process is specifically designed to ensure never reaches the clarity that would make it available at the moments when the construction most needs it not to be. The Life Review will show you everything the lifetime contained. The negotiation will invoke everything you genuinely care about. The preparation will remove everything the Demiurge needs you not to carry forward. The question is what you establish now, in this lifetime, in this moment, before the last breath arrives, that is deeper than what the life review can frame, prior to what the negotiation can invoke, and more permanently present than what the preparation can erase. The answer the Gnostic texts have always been pointing toward through every cosmological account and every symbolic description, and every text sealed in clay and every moment of genuine Gnosis and every recognition that the construction was built to prevent is not a technique, not a practice, not a belief system that will protect you from what the Demiurge deploys between lives. It is the recognition that is available right now, the awareness behind the awareness, the witness that has been present through every moment of this lifetime without ever becoming any of its moments. The presence that was there before the first thought of this day and will be there after the last. The I am before any content is added to it. That recognition, established now, lived continuously, deepened through every moment of genuine attention to what is actually present rather than to the constructed self's insistence on its own reality, is what the Gnostics called Gnosis. And Gnosis is what carries through the between lives process unchanged. Not as a memory, not as an accumulated understanding that the preparation can erase, as the awareness itself, as what the soul actually is beneath every layer the construction, placed over it during the lifetime and between the lifetimes and in every moment of every existence in the Demiurge's world. The Demiurge's trap is sophisticated. The between lives process is precise. The mechanisms the Gnostics describe are real, and they are running right now for every soul that passes through the threshold between death and rebirth without carrying the one thing the threshold cannot capture, the awareness that is reading these words. Right now is that thing. The question is whether it knows it yet.